Good evening. Welcome to the November 2nd, 2020 Elyria City Council meeting. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Simmons, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sierra.
Here.
Mr. Oswald. Here. Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings?
We have one. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. during the Elyria City Council meeting to consider the following: an ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located between West River Road North and Griswold Road, Elyria, Ohio, from a B-G Business General District to a B-AO Business Automotive Orient District.
Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? I don't know if there's someone on the line streaming in or not. No? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located between West River Road North and Griswold Road, Elyria, Ohio, from a B-G Business General District to a B-AO Business Automotive Oriented District.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-147.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
Okay.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Key, second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion?
Question.
Of course, call all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President, and happy November to all the city council members and to the city of Elyria. A couple updates. One of them is kind of fun. So as some of you know, November, there's a men's health awareness movement called No Shave November. So it gives us guys a chance to not have to shave. But I would, part of my challenge to the city as well as to council folks, the men in particular, is to complete one goal towards your health this month. I know Councilman Tollett is always getting on me about my health. And so I'm gonna take him up on that. So this month, either get a cancer screening or go to the doctor, get a gym membership, something that really goes towards your health. And I want to encourage all the women and girls, sisters, aunts to really push us and nudge us to do something for our health this month. And other updates are related to city business. We've been working with the finance department, and we're going to be presenting to you all at the next council meeting some updated allocations for the CARES dollars so that we will be eligible for another round of funding. As promised, we will have a presentation about the small businesses. We're waiting on some documentation from them, from many of them still, including their signed agreements. And again, just want to remind you that, or remind the public as well, that these funds are helping us not only help our small businesses and provide services to our community, but it's also assisting us with our general fund shortfalls. Next bit of business and pretty much last bit of business, we had the chance to recognize our staff, and I'll let the Safety Service Director talk about that in his remarks, but I just want to appreciate the council folks who were able to be there and celebrate the staff with us, and just want to encourage folks to get out and vote tomorrow, and democracy works when we all participate, so that's all I got.
Good, Mayor. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor? No. Safety Service Director Firestein.
Through the chair to members of council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. Kind of going off of what the mayor had indicated, on Friday we recognized the departments for all their hard work and excellence during this pandemic. It's not been easy. I think we can all say that most jobs in the city are not easy. It comes with a lot of tough constraints and usually out of the box thinking, but this year has really put that into action, and being able to continue service through the city and not really missing a beat and being creative in how we deliver things has just been a tremendous way. And you know, obviously my only experience with the city of Elyria has been through the pandemic, so I can't imagine you know, how they operated before, but going through this has really shown how much dedication they have to the city, and I'm just very thankful for not only being part of the team, but being able to work with them day in and day out. So thank you.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Firestein? Finance Director's Office, Mr. Farrell. You don't look like Mr. Pileski.
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Law Director Derry.
No report, Mr. President.
Police Chief Whiteley. Police and Fire Chief Mack.
I'd like to say no report, but based upon what we see in the newspaper, I don't think that would be fair to anybody. So I do have to report that we did have cases of COVID positive members this week at the fire department. Tuesday morning, we started having a member that was ill, another member on Wednesday. So Tuesday night, we had a test result back. So I had to make a late call to Director Firestein, and he and Assistant Safety Director Brubaker, along with Building and Lands, did a great job. We had closed station number 1, relocated everybody to station 2, called in replacement people, had the station clean and sanitized. By Wednesday, we had 5 positive cases. So by Thursday morning, we took a very conservative approach, which did cause a disruption in services. So we did not allow any member that had contact with any of the members that had tested positive. Did cause a slight disruption. There was no effects from that disruption, and I am happy to report that everything is back to normal. The members that are being seen through the health department are still under their care, but they are all feeling well, and we should be back to normal. And I appreciate everything that your director and assistant director and everybody did to make sure that the citizens had adequate response and that the people at the fire department were maintained safe. So thank you to everybody.
Very good. We wish them a speedy recovery. Anybody, any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Assistant Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I may, I want to personally thank Mr. Brubaker. I sent him a rather extensive list of requests that we would like to see up here on the council chambers: the monitor, the hand sanitizer, the touchless paper towel. Everything I asked for is done. So to you and your team, Kevin, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Ms. Calvert. And City Engineer, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't really have anything really new to report, just to point out that we're still out there working on a few projects, knocking out some punch lists. And if any council members have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Sarah.
For you, Mr. President, how are they coming along over on Bon Air and Abbey and Poplar?
We're on target to hopefully pave it early next week. So if everything goes right, we hopefully will have the roadway open next week, as long as the weather can hold out.
Thank you.
Mr. Baird?
Yeah, just question, what's the status of the connector road to Broad Street from Walmart? I thought that was gonna be open, then some people said, oh, it was open, then it was closed, and just, I'm not up to date, so just.
Sure. Well, the construction it is complete, other than the traffic light. There's a temporary traffic light up there right now. We're working out some final legals, and then once that's complete, we will open the road up, hopefully soon.
So that is open, people can go across that?
It's still not open all the way across. It's only open on the Walmart property for there right now. It is connected all the way up north, so you are capable of driving it. I have driven it.
Okay,
but it's not
so
open
there'll
to
be
the public yet.
more updates as we come along as to when it's totally open?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Schneider, can you give us an update on the fountain? I know the last time we were here, you had thought maybe it was going to be a couple weeks. Any status on that as far as that goes, and will the fence come down?
Yes, okay. Well, the work is complete, essentially. There are just a few bricks up front that we are looking to put in there, as well as the benches. Nothing that would prohibit it from being opened. The contractor was actually out there today, removing a lot of his equipment, a lot of the leftover materials, things of that nature. So we were going to take a look at it tomorrow, and if everything's good, we'll give the fence company a call and possibly remove the fence. There is some minor things like for the communications department to take care of electrical wise and some lights, but nothing major.
Were you able to turn it on temporarily just to see if everything was working, or is that just going to be next spring? No?
We did not turn it on. We did not want to have to re-winterize it again.
Okay. I didn't know if there was just one quick test and then winterize it for the next year. So, okay, any other questions for Mr. Schneider? Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec, Ms. Reardon. Any questions from Ms. Reardon? Oh, I can ask, how's the hockey rink going on over and through there? If you can give us an update on that. And
Thank you. Actually, it's going really well. I had a meeting over there with them today, and they are going to change their questionnaire a little bit that they asked, extend it with a few more questions. They send that out to all of their participants and coaches before every one of their practice or games. So we just kind of talked about that a little bit. And me and Assistant Director Firestein are going to have, or Director Firestein are going to have a conversation about possible locker rooms. They've been, every day, I get a message almost every day from them about that. So we're going to have a discussion about it and see if it's something that we can do safely.
Sure.
So.
Okay, any questions from Ms. Reardon? All right, very good. And at this time, I'd like to also thank IT department. Mr. Henderson's here. He's done a fabulous job for the onside of the pandemic, and Mr. Rothkerry leading that team, but we appreciate everything that you do for us. Thank you very much. Okay. President's referrals and remonstrances. Ms. Mitchell, can you help me with that? Thank you. Item number 1, Planning Commission Community Development. Item number 2, to Finance. Item number 3, to Finance. Items 4 through 5, placed on files, all copies upon request. Petitions and remonstrances from council members. There are none. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby. There are none. Reports of standing and special committees. There's one. Sponsored by Community Development, we have considered the matter of a request for a stock liquor license submitted by 114 Antioch Drive LLC, doing business as the Doghouse Bar and Grill located at 114 through 118 Antioch Drive, Elyria, permit class D5 and D6, and recommend that the City of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move this committee report be passed on its first reading.
Second?
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Any discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question be called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-24. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance to rezone real property located at 1301 Lowell Street, Elyria, Ohio, from a R-MD residential medium density district to a L-I light industrial district.
I declare this ordinance has its first reading. Public hearing is scheduled for December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance to rezone real property located on Ernst Street and Midway Boulevard, Elyria, Ohio, from a L-I light industrial district to a R-MHP residential manufactured home park district.
I declare this ordinance has its first reading. Public hearing scheduled for December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance to rezone real property located on Midway Boulevard, Elyria, Ohio, from a B-G business general district and a L-I light industrial district to a R-MHP residential manufactured home park district.
I declare this ordinance have its first reading. Public hearing held December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance to rezone real property located on Midway Boulevard, 51st Street and 52nd Street, Elyria, Ohio, from a L-I light industrial district to a R-MHP residential manufactured home park district.
I declare this ordinance have its first reading and public hearing scheduled for December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance to rezone real property located adjacent to 131 Buckeye Street, Elyria, Ohio, from a residential two-household R-TH district to a light industrial L-I district.
I declare this ordinance has had its first reading, public hearing scheduled for December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending section ordinance number 2020-38, known as the 2020 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance to change funds in various accounts. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis.
Oh, excuse me, it's not an emergency.
Does the second concur? It's not an emergency. Does the second concur?
Yes.
Yes, second concurs. Very good. Is there any discussion? Question has been called on suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-148. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a sewer service agreement with Lorraine County for sanitary sewers in Elyria Township.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-149. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a cooperation agreement with Elyria Township to share in the cost of the Lake Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension Project.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-150. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Horizon Education Centers and an Ohio nonprofit corporation to utilize the city's East Recreation Center.
Mr. Sarah.
That's me.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-151.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, ODNR, and accept, if offered, a grant through the Land and Water Conservation Fund Program for the Parks and Recreation Department and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-152. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance approving the application for the Downtown Demolition Program created by Ordinance 2020-83 for reimbursement of demolition costs at 381 Broad Street, Elyria, Ohio.
Mr. Callahan.
I believe this is Mrs. Mitchell. Okay. I move this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-153. That is all ordinances first reading. Second reading, there are none.
Ordinance's third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Engineer, Building Inspector on 11/9/2020, streamed live at 6 p.m.
City Council Chambers, all referred items. Finance request, the mayor, finance director, law director, safety service director, and engineer on 11/9. Streamed live at 6 p.m. following the community development. Council Chambers, all referred items. And strategic planning on 11/16/2020, requests the mayor, safety service director, finance director, and law director, all referred items. Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, just a big thank you to everyone who helped with our Issue 6 campaign. I know some of you are going to be putting out some signs in the appropriate space distance at polling locations. And then I asked for all the ward council people to get yard signs out. And Mr. Sarah so graciously volunteered to have us store them at Murphy Brothers because we might be able to use them in 5 years and put a different sticker with I'm sure we won't get Issue 6 again, but if we don't, then we could put a sticker on those and perhaps use them over again. I like to get my signs out on Tuesday afternoon. Some of you that might not be possible for you. The nice thing is we have beautiful weather the next couple days, but please make sure you just make a pass through your ward and at large, if you can just drive through your neighborhoods too, and let's try to make sure we get them all out by Wednesday early afternoon. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Well, this time I'd like to thank everybody as well for the Issue 6, but I really would like to thank Mr. Jesse for his efforts again in this go around. Your tenacity, I like to use that word that for you, has just been unbelievable, Mark, and we really appreciate it. And we hope that our voters will, continue on with this movement that we're doing and for the success and for the city of Elyria and everything. So I really appreciate that. So thank you, Mark. Is there anything else? Mr. Oswald.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been, of course, go to most all the meetings and see a lot of stuff that's been going on. We always seem to focus on all the negatives, and we need to start focusing on the positives that's going on. I had to go down to the doghouse because they're going to get a change in their liquor license. I talked to the owner. Can you believe the guy's from Akron? He's investing in Elyria. Can you believe that? There must be something good going on in Elyria. And I drive by the place, and they're doing very well. We've got a manufactured home park that wants to expand. My goodness gracious, in Elyria, isn't that so great? And how many businesses have come across that we are doing expansions for? They want to redistrict or rezone so they can put in something. Over by the Midway Mall, we still have a company that might want to put in something over there. Things are happening. I think we have to stay positive. I know I beat it into your brains that we got to have economic development, but that's what's going to get us out of the problems. When Bendix is gone, we're going to have a lot of this stuff happening, and that's what's going to keep that general fund going. So all I say is stay positive. Good things are to come in Elyria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Any other discussion? Mr. Baird.
Hearing no further business, move we adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Baird. Second. Second by Mr. Sarah. Any other discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. This meeting is adjourned.